In my previous life, to save the fourth prince, I unfortunately became disabled and was known as the lame princess consort. The fourth prince once vowed, "Lily, I will never let you down in this lifetime." But on the day of his coronation, he banished me to the cold palace and offered me poisoned wine. Lady Qin, your crippled body is a disgrace to me. The unborn child in my womb died tragically with me. The Qin family was falsely accused of treason, and the entire household was executed. In this second life, I will not repeat foolish actions and will return every past humiliation in full. Lily, get off the carriage quickly and come watch the Crown Prince's horse race with me. I slowly opened my eyes, my consciousness still trapped in the pain of the poisoned wine I had swallowed. As a familiar voice reached my ears, Murong Yao, dressed in Red Riding attire, lifted the carriage curtain and leaned out to look outside. Didn't Princess Anli die a year ago, horse racing? I instinctively retorted, my gaze quickly sweeping over the scene outside the carriage, the open horse track, the fluttering colorful flags, the guards taming horses not far away. This is clearly the royal racecourse from 3 years ago. Murong Yao didn't notice my unusual reaction and said excitedly, "The Crown Prince has been practicing here every day recently, saying he wants to win first place at the horse racing banquet when the envoys visit at the end of the month. To bring glory to Great Yang." My heart started racing uncontrollably. It's today, it's right here. The out-of-control horse charged at Theo Mu, and like a fool, I rushed to shield him. As a result, my left leg was trampled by the horse's hooves, leaving me with a lifelong disability. Perhaps it had been too long since I had such free control over my body. As I got out of the car, I stumbled, and a sharp pain shot through my ankle. Ah, the sharp pain jolted me awake. Murong Yao quickly stepped forward to support me, her face full of concern. "Lily, are you okay? Did you twist your ankle?" I bit my lip, forcing down the pain in my ankle, and shook my head. "No, I'm fine, I just tripped." As soon as the words left my mouth, 2 sets of footsteps could be heard not far away. I looked up and saw a man dressed in sapphire blue riding attire walking ahead, his posture upright and his face handsome. It was Theo Mu in his youth. Beside him was a woman dressed in white riding attire, her eyes and brows carrying a hint of charm. This was Theo Mu's cousin, Iris Su. Theo Mu quickly walked over, his tone tinged with concern. "Miss Qin, Yao, what happened?" My hand, hanging at my side, suddenly clenched tightly, my nails nearly digging into my palm. The cold, indifferent look in his eyes when he ordered someone to force poison down my throat in my past life now vividly surfaced before me. I took a deep breath, suppressing the surging hatred in my eyes, trying to keep my voice steady. "Greetings, Fourth Prince, Miss Su," Murong Yao quickly answered. "Oh, Your Highness." Lily accidentally sprained her ankle just as she got out of the carriage. Theo Mu frowned. "What a pity. I was hoping to have Lily accompany me for a horse race and give me some feedback on my riding and archery skills." His gaze remained sincere, as if he could see right through a person's heart. In my previous life, I was deceived by such a look. Beside her, Iris Su played with the horsewhip in her hand, covering her mouth as she chuckled lightly. "Isn't Miss Qin the daughter of a military family? How could you be so careless even when getting off the carriage?" I didn't respond to her, but instead looked at Theo Mu and Murong Yao. Speaking softly, "My apologies, Fourth Prince, Princess Anli. My foot is a bit uncomfortable now, and I'd like to return to the viewing stand to rest for a moment." Murong Yao's face showed a hint of disappointment. "All right then, I'll accompany you there." I interrupted her, shaking my head. "No need, Yao, I'll go by myself." Murong Yao still wanted to say something, but Iris Su tugged at her sleeve. "Princess, let's not delay the Fourth Prince's horse training. Since Miss Qin isn't feeling well, let her go rest on her own." The two of them left first. Theo Mu, however, stayed behind, his gaze fixed on me. "Lily, please don't take offense. Iris is young and straightforward, and she sometimes speaks without thinking. You are the daughter of General Qin, known for your generosity, and I'm sure you can overlook it." I sneered inwardly. Iris Su is only 9 months younger than me, and in the previous life, it was the same. No matter what Iris Su did, he could always brush me off with excuses like she's young or she's straightforward. I looked up at him, my tone calm. "What do you mean by this, Fourth Prince? I am not angry." Theo Mu's smile faded slightly, and he added, "Lily, Are you still upset about the Lantern Festival incident the other day? Iris didn't mean to break your palace lantern. The scene from the previous life's Lantern Festival instantly flashed through my mind. To prepare a Lantern Festival gift for Theo Mu, I stayed up late for half a month, handcrafting a palace lantern painted with swallows returning to the nest. With a peace charm I embroidered myself hanging from the tassel. But when I mustered the courage to present the lantern to him, Iris Sue accidentally bumped into it, and the lantern fell to the ground, crushed beyond recognition. At that time, Theo Mu simply said to me, "Iris didn't do it on purpose. Lily, please be more understanding." Looking back now, it was far from accidental, it was clearly intentional, and Theo Mu has been favoring Iris Sue from the very beginning. I slightly bent my knees in a curtsy. I have long forgotten this matter. My ankle is truly in unbearable pain, and it is inconvenient for me to stay longer. I shall take my leave first. Theo Mu stared at me for a long moment, as if thinking I was being willful, but eventually smiled and said, "Very well, you may go and rest first." I limped to the most secluded corner of the viewing stand, found a place to sit, took off my shoe, and saw that my ankle had swollen to the size of an egg, with the skin turning bluish-purple, although the pain was excruciating. A wave of relief washed over me. At least this time, I didn't repeat my past mistakes. I didn't sacrifice my left leg for Theo Mu. "Lily, why are you here all alone? I've been looking for you for ages." A gentle voice reached my ears. I looked up, and my eyes instantly welled with tears. The person who came turned out to be my sister-in-law, Chen Xiuyu. In my previous life, my sister-in-law accompanied me to the horse race. Later, I became disabled while saving Theo Mu. And she blamed herself endlessly, feeling that she hadn't taken good care of me. From then on, she became deeply depressed. The child in her womb was also lost due to excessive worry. "Sister-in-law," my voice choked up as I pointed to my ankle. "My foot is swollen." As soon as I finished speaking, tears began to stream down uncontrollably. Chen Xiuyu quickly crouched down, carefully examining my ankle with a pained expression. "How did it get so swollen? Come on. Let's go find the imperial physician traveling with us to get it bandaged. Don't let it leave any lasting issues, and don't be upset. It's just that you can't accompany the fourth prince for horse racing today. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." She thought I was upset about not being able to accompany Theo Mu. But only I knew the truth. I was shedding tears of gratitude for the fortune of being reborn and the joy of seeing my sister-in-law alive once more. I nodded and let my sister-in-law support me as we found a physician to briefly bandage my ankle, then returned together to the spectator stands. At this moment, Theo Mu was already riding a black horse onto the track, with Iris Sue following closely beside him on a white horse. The two rode side by side, and from a distance, they truly looked like a perfect match. Drawing soft murmurs of admiration from many in the stands, I glanced at them absent-mindedly, then turned my attention back to my own left leg. Completely intact, without any hideous scars or stiff muscles, even able to curl my toes with ease. That long-lost feeling of being in complete control of my body made my eyes well up in an instant. Someone, come quickly, someone, stop that horse." The distant cries of the palace attendants pierced through the noisy racetrack. Sure enough, the crazed horse charged straight toward Theo Mu's mount. The attendants rushed forward to help, but were all forced back in fear by the fierce horse's violent kicks. In just a few moments, the wild horse had closed in behind Theo Mu. The gasps from the track suddenly grew louder, and the horse's front hooves were nearly upon Theo Mu's stirrups. Theo Mu was clearly panicked, trying to rein in and evade. But that crazed horse was too fast. He only had time to turn sideways before it slammed hard into his horse's back, throwing him off entirely and sending him crashing heavily onto the gravel of the racetrack. Bang! The sound echoed clearly in my ears. Exactly the same as the sound of my left leg bone breaking in my previous life. Out of the corner of my eye, Theo Mu lay on the ground, his left leg propped up at an unnatural angle. Iris Sue was so frightened that her face turned deathly pale. She stumbled to her knees beside Theo Mu, her voice trembling with tears. Cousin, are you okay? The imperial physician, call the imperial physician, quickly." Beside me, Chen Xiuyu was also startled by the sudden turn of events. Instinctively, she pressed my face against her shoulder, her voice trembling. "Lily, Don't look, don't look." I took the opportunity to bury my face in her shoulder, afraid that others might see the smile on my lips. "Theo Mu, in this life, you shall bear the suffering of that crippled leg. In the previous life, it was after this horse racing accident that the struggle for the throne was brought completely into the open. At that time, the emperor had 4 sons. The eldest prince, Levi Mu, was born to the late empress, making him both the legitimate and the eldest son. The second prince, Murong Jiao, indulged in wine and women, showing no interest in competing for the throne. The third prince, Levi Mu, had been frail and sickly since childhood, constantly relying on medicinal soups and rarely even attending court assemblies. Only the fourth prince, Theo Mu, whose mother is the emperor's most favored consort Li and who has long been known for his virtue and integrity, has secretly won over many court officials. As for me, I became the sacrificial victim in that horse racing accident, to appease the general's mansion, which held military power, and to demonstrate his benevolence. The emperor issued an edict betrothing me to Theo Mu. On the day of the grand wedding, my title as the lame princess consort spread throughout the capital overnight, but no one expected that this seemingly accidental horse racing incident would become the trigger to bring down the crown prince. Within just 2 months, someone discovered cursed effigies in the eldest prince's residence, with the birth dates of the emperor and the fourth prince clearly inscribed on them. Shortly after, court officials jointly submitted a memorial, accusing the eldest prince of orchestrating the wild horse incident at the racetrack as a sinister plot to eliminate the fourth prince. The emperor was enraged, and the prince was deposed and confined for life in the imperial clan court. As for Theo Mu, taking advantage of his status as a victim and with the support of consort Li in the rear palace, he was rightfully appointed as the crown prince. Within moments, the mad horse was killed by an arrow. In less than half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the emperor's bright yellow carriage arrived at the horse grounds. The emperor's face was as dark as if it could drip water, followed by the first prince, the second prince, and even the third prince, who rarely appeared in public, was at the end. The gazes of several people fell on Theo Mu in the center of the racetrack, filled with gravity. The palace attendants and guards nearby, seeing this, instantly dropped to their knees in unison. Not daring to breathe heavily, consort Li stumbled to the side of the stretcher. "Kaya, my Kaya, how could this happen? What on earth is going on?" She suddenly looked up, as if remembering something, and demanded sharply, "Where is the Qin family's young lady? Where is Lily Qin? Wasn't she always by Kaya's side? Why is she nowhere to be seen today?" Seeing only Iris Su, Murong Yao, and the guards surrounding Theo Mu, consort Li completely lost control of her emotions. Pointing at the attendants present, she screamed, "You useless fools, if anything happens to the fourth prince today, you will all die." Several imperial physicians hurried over. An elderly physician knelt on the sandy ground, his trembling fingers untying Theo Mu's trouser leg. When he saw the obviously deformed bone at the knee and the blood continuously seeping out, his expression instantly turned grave. "The bone is severely shattered, and he has lost too much blood. He must be carried back to the palace immediately for wound cleaning and bone setting. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid we won't be able to save it. Can't keep it under control." The emperor's gaze swept over the remaining princes' faces and finally settled on the eldest prince. His tone was icy. "Immediately send someone to thoroughly investigate the incident of the mad horse. I want to see who is so bold as to tamper with the royal racecourse." The eldest prince bowed and accepted the order, his voice steady. "Your son obeys the decree, 06, to determine whether the mad horse had been controlled by someone." The guards questioned and searched everyone present. By the time everything settled down, the sky had long since darkened. When we returned to the Qin residence, the main gate was already wide open, and Mother was standing on the steps, anxiously looking around. As soon as she saw us getting out of the carriage, she hurried forward, grabbed my hand, and looked me up and down. "Lily, you're finally back. Are you all right? Were you hurt?" Even Father Qin Lai, who was always dignified, came out from the main hall. "It's good that you've returned safely." I shook my head and said softly, "I'm fine, but the fourth prince was injured in the leg by a crazed horse." Upon hearing this, Mother let out a long sigh of relief, patting her chest and saying, "It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Thankfully, it wasn't you." "You can't say it like that, Father's tone was serious. After all, the fourth prince is a member of the royal family. With something like this happening now, the imperial household is unlikely to let it go easily. I am well aware that my father has always been loyal to the royal family, maintaining a neutral stance and never involving himself in the conflicts among the princes. Yet in my previous life, it was because I was determined to marry Theo Mu that he had no choice but to secretly support the fourth prince's rise to power for my sake, only to end up with our entire family being executed. At this thought, I took a deep breath and looked up at my father. Father, I have something to discuss with you. About me and the fourth prince. My father paused for a moment, then nodded. All right, let's talk in the study. Entering the study, I did not wait for my father to take a seat but knelt directly on the ground, looking at him with a resolute gaze. Father, your daughter will not marry the fourth prince, Theo Mu. In my previous life, my elder brother unfortunately fell into an enemy ambush on the battlefield while fighting the Xiongnu and died in combat, overwhelmed by grief. The loss in the war coupled with illness led to the loss of 2 cities. After Theo Mu ascended the throne, he instead falsely accused the Qin family of colluding with the enemy and committing treason, and the so-called evidence was a painting titled Mountain and River Map that Theo Mu had personally given to his father many years ago. The painting appeared to praise the grandeur of the Yang nation's landscape, but in reality, it insinuated the idea of unstable mountains and rivers. Back then, the sudden death of the former crown prince allowed the current emperor to ascend the throne, making this painting a sensitive subject from the start. Coupled with the Qin family's performance on the battlefield later on, Theo Mu used these 2 points to firmly pin the charge of treason on the Qin family, leaving us with no way to defend ourselves. Father was clearly shocked. Lily, what do you mean by this? Although the marriage arrangement with the fourth prince hasn't been formally proposed, who in the entire capital doesn't know that you two are deeply in love, why are you suddenly saying you won't marry him? I knelt on the ground, refusing to rise, and said firmly, Father, I know this sounds absurd, but please, you must believe me. Theo Mu is not a good man. If I marry him, I will not only harm myself but also bring disaster upon the entire Qin family. Father looked at me and remained silent for a long time. He has always understood my temperament and knows that I am not someone who would make unreasonable demands. Finally, he reached out to help me up. All right, I believe you, my child. Since you are unwilling to marry, I will cancel this engagement for you. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the gauze wrapped around my ankle, and suddenly realized that my foot must not heal too quickly. The next day, as soon as dawn broke, Consort Li summoned me to the palace. These useless physicians, a bunch of incompetents, they can't even save a prince. What use are they keeping them around? Before I even reached the entrance of the hall, I could hear Consort Li's tearful voice. Iris Su said softly, Aunt, please don't be upset, cousin will surely be fine. I raised my hand and pushed open the hall door. The room was filled with the strong scent of calming incense, yet it couldn't mask the medicinal odor and the aura of death lingering in the air. Consort Li sat on the soft couch in the main seat, her eyes red and swollen, her hair slightly disheveled, clearly having stayed up all night. I cautiously walked into the hall, knelt down on one knee, and said, Your humble servant, Lily Qin, pays respects to Consort Li. Miss Qin has arrived. Consort Li's gaze fell on my leg. I heard you were supposed to race horses with Kaya yesterday. There was no need to guess. I knew these words must have been mentioned to her by Iris Su. I respectfully replied, Your Highness, I did indeed have an appointment with the fourth prince to go horseback riding yesterday, but I accidentally sprained my ankle just before the race and was unable to attend. Murong Yao, standing nearby, quickly chimed in, Yes, Mother Consort. Lily was in so much pain she couldn't even stand steadily, so there was no way she could accompany His Highness. Consort Li nodded, though her gaze still lingered on my leg. Since you've sprained your ankle, you must have it properly examined to avoid any lasting issues. As she spoke, she gave a meaningful glance to the matron beside her. The matron immediately stepped forward and, without a word, pressed me onto a nearby stool, reaching out to lift the hem of my skirt. Under the skirt, the originally swollen ankle had now become even more inflamed, with the gauze stained yellow by the oozing medicine, looking much worse than the day before. Upon seeing this, Murong Yao exclaimed in shock, Lily, How did your foot become so much worse overnight? Before I could speak, Qing Dai, the maid who had entered the palace with me, immediately knelt on the ground and said, "Your Highness, our young lady learned last night that the fourth prince was injured and did not sleep a wink. Spending the whole night copying Buddhist scriptures to pray for his recovery, it seems she neglected to take proper care of herself," she said. Taking out a scroll of Buddhist scriptures wrapped in brocade from the package and presenting it with both hands, the palace maid received it and presented it to Consort Li. Consort Li unrolled the scriptures and saw that the handwriting was neat and elegant, with even ink tones, clearly copied with great care. Her previously tense expression softened slightly. "The young lady of the Qin family is quite thoughtful. I only wish for the fourth prince's safety and well-being." But Consort Li suddenly changed the subject. "Lily, if you had been by Kaya's side yesterday, this would never have happened." Murong Yao, "Mother, what are you saying?" Consort Li ignored her daughter, rose from her seat, and walked down to stand before me. "I have always regarded you as my own child, and you should be aware of Kaya's feelings for you. Now that Kaya is lying there, his fate uncertain, would you be willing to stay by his side throughout his recovery?" My lowered eyelids trembled slightly. In her previous life, she was the same, saying things like "treat me as her own daughter" and "never look down on my injured leg." But after I married into the fourth prince's residence, when I failed to conceive within a year, she immediately used the importance of the imperial lineage as an excuse to send Iris Su into the residence as a concubine, and even privately told the servants, "How could my grandson have a crippled mother?" I was just thinking about how to politely decline when suddenly, from outside the hall, came the loud announcement from the eunuch, "His Majesty has arrived." Consort Li instantly put on an expression of grievance and fragility, quickly stepping forward to greet him. The emperor's face was dark with worry as he walked into the hall and saw people kneeling all over the floor. He frowned and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" Concubine Li was crying with tears streaming down her face like rain on pear blossoms. "Your Majesty, you've finally come. Kaya is still unconscious." And the imperial physician said that his legs might. The emperor patted her back, his tone carrying a hint of barely perceptible irritation. "My beloved concubine, do not worry. The imperial physician has already said that Kaya only has severe bone injuries. With proper rest and recuperation, he will surely be able to stand again." Theo Mu lay there, his face pale as paper, his lips cracked and peeling. His once upright and strong body lay sunken in the brocade bedding, appearing exceptionally weak. Even his breathing was faint and shallow. I bowed once more. "Your servant, Lily Qin, pays respects to your Majesty, hearing that the fourth prince has been injured." I was deeply troubled. I stayed up all night copying a volume of Buddhist scriptures and brought it here, hoping for His Highness's swift recovery. The emperor turned his head. "The Qin family's daughter is quite thoughtful. It is rare for Qin Lai to have raised such a deeply loyal and righteous daughter." Consort Li suddenly looked up upon hearing this, her eyes brimming with tears as she gazed at the emperor. "Your Majesty, see how sincere the Qin family's daughter is toward the fourth prince. Now that Kaya is severely injured, he needs someone by his side to care for him attentively. Why not arrange a marriage for these two?" I glanced out of the corner of my eye at Iris Su, who was wiping Theo Mu's sweat, and noticed her hand holding the handkerchief tightened slightly, her lips bitten pale, her eyes filled with resentment and jealousy. "My beloved consort, choose your words carefully." Before Consort Li could finish speaking, the emperor interrupted her with a cold expression. "Kaya is still ill. Do not bring up the matter of marriage again." Consort Li was taken aback, clearly not expecting the emperor to refuse so directly. Little did she know that in the previous life, the emperor had agreed to arrange the marriage for two reasons. First, because I had been left permanently disabled while saving Theo Mu, and he feared the Qin family would hold a grudge. Second, because my father held military power and guarded the border, and he needed this marriage to placate the hearts of the military officials. But in this life, the situation is already different. Now it's Theo Mu who is disabled, not me. It took me a long time to find an opportunity to leave the Consort Li's palace. I just felt a wave of exhaustion in my heart. The emperor has always favored Consort Li. Although he dismissed her words today, if she persists for a few more days, will he relent? How could my father refuse a marriage arranged by the emperor? I walked aimlessly and, without realizing it, found myself in the imperial garden. Not far away stood the dilapidated palace with peeling red lacquer and overgrown weeds, the cold palace, where I first met Theo Mu, 10 years ago. I grew up in the northern desert with my father and mother. Later, my father worried that staying in the northern desert would make it hard for me to find a good match. So he deliberately sent me back to the capital, but the noble ladies in the capital always looked down on me for being uncouth and excluded me at every turn. Once, at a palace banquet, several noble ladies deliberately composed poems to mock me. I couldn't bear the humiliation. Yet I didn't want to embarrass my father, so I hid behind a rockery and cried in secret. At that moment, a gentle voice came from behind the rockery, saying, "Everyone is unique, Miss Chin. I think you are just fine as you are." When I looked up, I only saw him wearing a robe embroidered with python patterns, his back straight and tall. At that time, I had never seen many members of the imperial family, but I knew that only a prince could wear a python-patterned robe. Later, when I returned to the palace banquet, I realized that the only adult princes present that day were the eldest prince and the fourth prince. The eldest prince has always been stern and never seemed the type to speak such gentle words, so I naturally assumed that the person who comforted me that day was Theo Mu. From then on, my heart quietly became attached to him. I did all sorts of foolish things for him, only to end up with my family destroyed and myself ruined. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but curl my lips in self-mockery. "Don't move," a clear, gentle voice suddenly came from behind me, and I instinctively stopped in my tracks. Prince Levi Mu was standing not far away, dressed in a plain brocade robe. Though his complexion was somewhat pale, it carried a gentle, jade-like elegance. "Your Highness, Prince Levi, what's the matter?" Levi Mu walked over slowly, his gaze fixed near my feet. "Miss Chin, there's a fledgling bird by your foot. If you take another step, you might hurt it." I looked down and noticed a small sparrow, its feathers not yet fully grown. Trembling as it huddled in the cracks of the bluestone pavement, my cheeks instantly flushed, and I quickly took 2 steps back. "Sorry, I didn't notice." Levi Mu smiled gently and said in a soft tone, "No problem." As he spoke, he actually raised his hand to steady himself against the nearby tree trunk and carefully climbed onto a low branch. It turned out that the young bird's nest was built at the fork of the tree trunk. Perhaps it had been blown down by the wind and fallen to the ground. He carefully picked up the young bird and placed it back into the nest, his movements so gentle as if afraid of shattering some precious treasure. The third prince, Levi Mu, had always kept a low profile in the court, never involving himself in the conflicts among the princes. He usually either secluded himself in his residence to read or retreated to his villa outside the city for quiet rest, almost as if he had no presence at all. In my previous life, my heart was so full of Theo Mu that I never truly paid attention to this third prince. "Miss Chin, has your foot been injured?" Levi Mu descended from the tree, his gaze falling on my bandaged ankle, his tone tinged with concern. I nodded. "I accidentally sprained my ankle at the racetrack yesterday. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness." He took out a small white porcelain bottle from his sleeve and handed it to me. "This is a specially made blood-activating ointment from the palace, very effective for sprains. If you don't mind, Miss Chin, please take it and use it." I quickly accepted it and curtsied in gratitude. "Thank you, third prince. I am deeply grateful." I held the ointment given by the third prince, and a name suddenly surfaced in my mind. Zhuangjizi. In my previous life, there was a Taoist priest named Zhuangjizi. He had been introduced to the prince's mansion, claiming to possess a miracle drug that could make my broken leg stand again. At that time, I was so desperate for a cure that I was almost willing to believe his nonsense. But before I could use the medicine, I heard that he had somehow offended the third prince, Levi Mu, and within a few days, he disappeared without a trace. Later, I vaguely learned that this miracle drug seemed to enable people to stand up, but in reality, it contained a GU. The GU worm survives by feeding on human blood. In the early stages, it makes people mistakenly believe that their leg injury is improving, but within half a month, the GU worm will gnaw at the bones, eventually hollowing out the entire leg, a fate thousands of times worse than being lame. I vaguely remember that in my past life, Zhuangjizi stayed at a small and near Jing'an temple, specifically waiting for nobles who prayed to gods and Buddhas and were desperate for medical treatment to take the bait. For the next few days, I stayed quietly at home, keeping my mother company to ease her boredom while also keeping an eye on the movements in the palace. Sure enough, within 3 days, news arrived. Fourth Prince Theomu's leg injury, despite multiple consultations with imperial physicians over several days, showed no signs of improvement. Some physicians even hinted discreetly that there was a risk of him becoming lame. The emperor, deeply worried, had already begun secretly seeking out folk healers, hoping to find a remedy to treat the fourth prince's injury. Have you heard? They say the fourth prince is offering a hefty reward for medical treatment. He's been bedridden for half a month and still can't get up. Exactly. I heard from my cousin that the emperor has ordered that whoever can cure the fourth prince's injury will not only be granted an official position but also rewarded with 10,000 taels of gold. That day, I wore a set of coarse, grayish short clothes, deliberately hunched my back, and smeared some charcoal dust on my face, disguising myself as a shabby-looking peddler, and went to a small inn in the Jing'an temple. Sitting at a table in the corner, the maid Qingdai also covered her head with a scarf, pretending to be a middle-aged laundress, playing along with me in a coordinated act. But with all this secrecy, what exactly is the illness? Now the fourth prince's residence is heavily guarded, and those frauds will be caught. That's why they're seeking a true eminent monk. But I have a relative who works as a cook in the fourth prince's residence, and I heard, sure enough, a man wearing a faded Taoist robe, his hair casually tied up with a wooden hairpin, was straining his ears to listen in our direction. When he heard the words 10,000 taels of gold, a greedy glint gradually appeared in Zhuangji's eyes. Qingdai and I chatted a bit more about trivial matters, pretending to be full and satisfied, then paid the bill and walked out. After stepping out, as previously agreed, Qingdai left, and I deliberately slowed my pace. Sure enough, after just a few steps, hurried footsteps sounded behind me. A hand suddenly grabbed my arm and yanked me into a secluded alley nearby. Zhuangji anxiously asked, "Wait, sir, what you said in the inn just now, is it true? Is the fourth prince really offering a hefty reward for a cure for his leg injury? Could you tell me, what exactly happened to His Highness's injury?" I struggled to break free from his grip and took a step back. What are you saying? I don't understand. I was just making things up. Don't come after me. Seeing this, Zhuangji immediately lowered his voice. Brave one, to be honest, I have a secret remedy specifically for bone injuries. If we can cure the fourth prince, you'll be well rewarded. Once it's done, I'll give you 500 taels of silver. How about it? 500 taels, I frowned, deliberately showing a look of disbelief. You look like a poor, shabby Taoist. Are you trying to trick me? Besides, with something this important, why should I trust you? Zhuangji grew anxious and raised the offer. How about 1,000 taels? I'll give you 1,000 taels. Isn't that enough? Just tell me all about the fourth prince's situation and help me get an introduction. And the silver won't be short. I pretended to hesitate for a moment, then gritted my teeth and said, all right then, but I can't just tell you for free. You have to give me a deposit now, 100 taels, otherwise, I'll turn around and share this information with someone else, and you can forget about getting your 10,000 taels of gold. Zhuangji pulled a heavy money pouch from his robe and shoved it into my hand. There's exactly 100 taels in here, take it. Now can you tell me? I weighed the pouch in my hand to confirm it was enough, then whispered to him, the fourth prince has a leg injury, and it's said he might end up lame. But if you want to see him, you'll need to get an introduction through someone close to Consort Li. She's the most eager to have His Highness's leg healed. Upon hearing this, Zhuangji repeatedly expressed his thanks and then hurriedly left the alley, clearly intending to find a way to contact someone from Consort Li's side. I watched his figure disappear at the alley's entrance, a smile curling at the corner of my mouth. I put away the money pouch and turned to head back to the residence by another route. But after taking just 2 steps, my feet suddenly came to a halt. There stood a figure at some point, his white robe accentuating his tall and straight posture. His eyes were deep, and his gaze was unfathomable. This person turned out to be the third prince, Levi Mu. How long has the third prince been here? How much more did he hear, if he were to expose my dealings with Zhuangji? The carefully laid plan I've set up would likely fall apart. I forcefully suppressed the panic in my heart, deliberately roughened my voice, and put on a fierce and overbearing demeanor, shouting menacingly, "Make way, who are you blocking the path?" But Levi Mu didn't move, just quietly looked at me. Miss Qin. What are you doing here? What do you mean, Miss Qin? I'm a man. The smell of the ointment on you, I would never mistake it. Helplessly, I had no choice but to bend my waist and kneel, performing a proper salute. Your humble servant, Lily Qin, pays respects to His Highness, the third prince. Levi Mu's tone was flat and unemotional. Miss Qin seems to be in high spirits, instead of recuperating at the general's manner. You've come to this suburban inn to mingle with charlatans. His gaze flickered toward my leg. I couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. I forced myself to calm down, lowered my gaze, and said, I do not understand what your highness means. Oh, Levi Mu raised an eyebrow, his tone tinged with amusement. I knew that further excuses would only make me appear more ridiculous, so it was better to lay everything out openly. I straightened my back and spoke with a serious tone. Since your highness has seen it all, I will not hide it from you. I have a proposition I wish to discuss with your highness. Levi Mu gave a slight nod and made a please speak gesture. Miss Qin, feel free to share your thoughts. Please remind the Crown Prince as soon as possible to be cautious of people within the palace, especially those related to the fourth prince's residence. The third prince's mother passed away early, and he was raised by the Crown Prince's mother since childhood. He and the Crown Prince, Levi Mu, have always been close, treating each other as brothers. In the previous life, it was precisely because of this connection that Levi Mu was implicated after the Crown Prince was deposed. This is a bet. I'm betting on Levi Mu's brotherly bond with the Crown Prince. After a long pause, Levi Mu's expression turned serious. It's getting late, and it's not safe for a young lady like Miss Qin to be here. You should return to your residence soon. I felt a sense of relief. This person had agreed to make a deal with me. After returning to the Qin residence, I handed the 100 taels deposit given by Zhuangjizi to Qing Dai for safekeeping and carefully instructed her, keep a close watch on the fourth prince's residence and consort Li's palace in the coming days. Report any news to me immediately. Qingdian nodded in agreement. Yes, miss. A few days later, rumors began to circulate in the capital that a robed mystic had been frequently visiting the fourth prince's residence, claiming, the fourth prince is a man blessed by heaven. Even in the face of calamity, he can turn misfortune into fortune. Afterward, the news that Theo Mu has fully recovered from his injuries spread throughout the entire capital. It is said that Theo Mu was not only able to get out of bed but also personally went to pay his respects to the emperor. Although his steps were somewhat slow, no obvious limp could be detected. Upon hearing this, the emperor was greatly pleased and immediately bestowed many precious medicinal herbs upon the fourth prince's residence, specifically praising Consort Li for her meritorious care. Consort Li, glowing with delight, decided to host a banquet at the fourth prince's residence, inviting the noble ladies and young misses from all the prominent families in the capital. At the Qin residence, my sister-in-law Chen Xiuyu, gently touching her still flat abdomen, looked at me with a puzzled expression. Why would Consort Li choose to hold a banquet at this time? The fourth prince's injuries have only just begun to improve. Shouldn't he be resting quietly? Probably to prove a point for the fourth prince, concubine Li, who values her reputation and is eager to solidify Theo Mu's status as a prince, naturally had to host a banquet. She wanted the influential figures in the capital to witness Theo Mu's recovery with their own eyes and silence the voices of doubt. Me. This banquet might not be simple. You're heavily pregnant, so it's best not to go. Stay at the residence and rest peacefully. Mother and I will go with Qing Dai, sister-in-law. All right, Lily, be careful when you go. On the day of the banquet, I accompanied my mother in the carriage to the fourth prince's residence. The banquet had not yet officially begun, and the courtyard was already filled with people. Consort Li sat in the main pavilion. Dressed in a luxurious palace gown embroidered with peonies, she was chatting and laughing with several titled noblewomen, her face beaming with pride and radiance. A stark contrast to the anxiety she had shown in recent days. I found a seat in a corner and absent-mindedly sipped my wine. Consort Li's family were originally merchants. It was only by virtue of her beauty that she caught the emperor's eye. Though favored, she was always looked down upon by the consorts from noble families. Therefore, Consort Li was extremely strict with Theo Mu and Murong Yao, always striving to be the best in everything, and from a young age, neither of them dared to defy her. It was precisely because of this that even though Theo Mu liked Iris Su, he did not dare to directly ask Consort Lee for her approval, because Consort Lee had long since chosen prestigious candidates for Theo Mu's principal and secondary consorts, and Iris Su could at most become a concubine in his previous life. The reason Theo Mu was so determined to win first place at the horse racing banquet was to use that achievement to have the emperor grant him a marriage, at least allowing Iris Su to enter his household as a secondary consort. So, as I was pondering, a maid came before me, curtsied, and said, "Miss Qin, my princess requests your presence." I looked up and saw that it was Chun Dao, the personal maid by Murong Yao's side. In the past, Murong Yao often invited me to play, and Chun Dao was a familiar face, so I didn't think much of it. I stood up and smiled, saying, "Thank you, Miss Chun Dao, for leading the way." Following behind Chun Dao, at first I didn't notice anything unusual, but the further we went, the more remote it became, and I suddenly felt something was wrong. If Murong Yao wanted to see me, why would she bring me to such a secluded place? What made me even more anxious was that, at some point, my body began to feel out of control. My heartbeat gradually quickened, and my mind grew increasingly hazy. I recalled the cup of wine I had just drunk. It must have been tampered with. I stopped in my tracks, steadying myself. "Miss Chun Dao, where exactly is the princess? This doesn't seem like a place for receiving guests, does it?" Chun Dao didn't look back. "Don't worry, Miss Qin, the princess is in the warm pavilion ahead and said she has some private words to share with you. Something's wrong, terribly wrong." I tried hard to suppress the wild thoughts in my heart and wanted to turn around to leave, but my body felt as heavy as if filled with lead, without even the strength to lift a hand. Seeing me like this, Chun Dao came over and half dragged me along. The inner heat grew increasingly intense, and the scene before my eyes began to blur. I quietly pulled out the silver hairpin from my head and fiercely slashed my palm. Chun Dao led me to a warm chamber to lie down, then quickly turned and left, not forgetting to lock the door behind her. The warm chamber was filled with a strong incense, and the scent, mingling with the effects of the medicine inside me, made me even dizzier. I forced myself to sit up and looked up to see Iris Su standing in the center of the room, holding a delicate pink gauze dress in her hand, her gaze complex as she looked at me. "Lily Qin, just accept your fate." Iris Su stepped forward, reaching out to undress me. I abruptly turned to avoid her, pressing a silver hairpin against her neck. "Iris Su, let me go, otherwise, even if it means ruining my reputation, I will kill you today." The icy touch made Iris Su freeze instantly. A flicker of fear flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by grievance and resentment. "Do you think I want to do this? The man I love, and I have to personally send him to your bed. But my aunt said that if I don't do as she says, she'll send me back to my hometown and never allow me to set foot in the capital again." I glared at her fiercely. "That has nothing to do with me. Even if you succeed in your scheme today, tomorrow I'll go to the emperor and accuse you of plotting against the daughter of an imperial official. Let's see if His Majesty will protect a cousin with no family background or the Qin family." Iris Su trembled, clearly frightened. She looked at me, hesitated for a long time, and finally gritted her teeth. "Fine, I'll let you go, but you have to help me." My heart stirred, and I immediately nodded. "Deal." Iris Su quickly lay down on the nearby couch. I swept the teacup off the table, deliberately pinched a few red marks on the side of her neck, and finally blew out the candle on the desk. The warm chamber instantly fell into darkness. I groped my way to the window, gently pushed it open a crack, and flipped out, just as I hid behind the pillar outside the window. I saw Theo Mu holding onto the attendant's hand, walking step by step toward the warm chamber. Not long after, ambiguous gasps and soft moans could be heard from inside. I didn't dare to stay long and quietly made my way along the wall toward the depths of the courtyard, eventually hiding behind a rockery, gasping for breath as I tried to calm the effects of the drug in my body. "Miss Qin, it seems every time I run into you, it's in such an awkward situation." A clear, gentle voice suddenly came from above. I looked up sharply to see Levi Mu standing beside the rockery, startled and embarrassed. I quickly covered my mouth. "Your Highness, the third prince, you jest. I never expected to run into you every time I'm in such a sorry state." Levi Mu hopped down from the stone platform with a light, agile movement, showing no sign of physical weakness. He glanced at my flushed cheeks and the wound on my palm, frowning slightly. This isn't the place to talk. Follow me. Levi Mu quietly led me away from the fourth prince's residence to a courtyard. He then instructed the maids to bring a clean set of clothes and had warm water and medicinal ointment delivered. Change your clothes first. I'll wait for you outside the door. After I changed my clothes and bandaged the wound on my palm, Levi Mu came back inside. He looked at me and spoke seriously. Although I don't know why you lured Zwanjizi to the fourth prince's residence. I know you must have had your reasons, so I secretly sent someone to follow Zwanjizi. Unexpectedly, I uncovered something. My heart tightened, and I quickly pressed. What has your highness found out? Someone saw a close eunuch from Consort Li's palace visiting the stables at the horse grounds. What? I looked up abruptly, my heart pounding wildly. In my previous life, I had always thought the mad horse incident was an accident. But I never imagined it might have been deliberately arranged by Consort Li. Where is that eunuch? His body was found in the well of the Imperial Garden 3 days ago. I slumped back into the chair dejectedly. Levi Mu looked at my state and softly comforted me. You don't need to be too disappointed. At least we now know that the incident with the mad horse was not an accident. In the future, when dealing with Consort Li and the fourth prince, we'll have a better chance of success. Levi Mu sent someone to the Qin residence to inform my mother, saying only that I had suddenly suffered a headache at the banquet, felt unwell, and had been sent back home to rest, so as not to worry her. That evening, I saw my mother return with a pale face and say, Consort Li barged into the warm chamber with her people and caught the fourth prince and Miss Su red-handed. She looked at me again. Lily, my Lily. My father also guessed that this was a scheme set up for me and closed his eyes directly. My child, rest assured, even if it costs me my old life, I will not let you marry the fourth prince. Early the next morning, Iris Su was granted the title of concubine and taken into the fourth prince's residence. Not long after noon, Murong Yao actually came crying to the Qin residence. Lily, I'm sorry. What happened yesterday was my fault. My maid, Chundao, was threatened by my mother's people. That's why she tricked you into going to the warm pavilion. I really didn't know my mother intended to do such a thing to you. Seeing her face full of guilt and her flustered, helpless demeanor, I felt somewhat conflicted inside. In her previous life, Murong Yao was of a weak disposition, caught in a dilemma between me, Consort Li, and Theo Mu, Yao. I know you are innocent. I don't blame you. Murong Yao was taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to forgive her so easily. But have you considered that if it wasn't me who was framed yesterday, but another noble lady favored by His Majesty, do you think the fourth prince's estate would still be safe and sound? Murong Yao's face instantly turned deathly pale, and her body trembled slightly. I had thought Theo Mu would behave himself for a few days, but not long after, he secretly sent someone to deliver a message, asking to meet me at a restaurant. After hesitating for a moment, I still decided to go. When I entered the private room, Theo Mu, seeing me come in, explained with a pale face, Lily, you've finally come. What happened yesterday was all planned by my mother. I had no idea at all. I slightly bent my knees in a curtsy and said in a calm tone, Your Highness, the fourth prince. I do not understand what you are saying. Miss Su is gentle and virtuous, and she is a perfect match for your highness. Now that you have taken her as a concubine, it is a wonderful thing. My heart belongs only to you. Theo Mu stepped forward. Lily, wait for me. At the end of the month's equestrian banquet, I will surely win first place. Then, I will ask my father to grant us a marriage, making you my official consort. I clenched my palm tightly, not allowing myself to show any sign of emotion. I gently pulled my hand away from his. Your Highness, you absolutely must not. Your leg injury has only just healed. It takes 100 days for bones and tendons to mend. How can you possibly participate in a horse race now? What if you injure your leg again? What would we do then? In my previous life, after 3 years of marriage, I knew Theo Mu all too well. On the surface, he appeared noble and flawless, but in reality, he was sensitive, suspicious, and extremely concerned with saving face. The more I tried to persuade him, the more he would think I was hinting that his leg hadn't fully healed and that I doubted his ability to win the race. It only made him more rebellious. Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, Theo Mu's face darkened. You doubt me? You think my leg hasn't healed yet? I wouldn't dare. I quickly lowered my head, my tone tinged with a hint of grievance. I only genuinely care about your highness's well-being. Please listen to my advice. Skip this horse race and focus on recovering. That's more important than anything else. Enough. I don't need your advice. I know perfectly well how my leg is doing. He took a deep breath, his eyes growing firm again as he stared intently at me. I will show everyone that I, Theo Mu, am perfectly fine. Watching his stubborn demeanor, I sneered inwardly. Then, I said softly, I, your humble servant, look forward to your highness's good news. But you must take care of your health and avoid pushing yourself too hard. After that day we met, I heard that Theo Mu was spending every day at the racetrack. And Zwanjizi even appeared at the fourth prince's residence from time to time. Soon, the day of the envoy's visit arrived. In the middle of the banquet, the leader of the Yu Kingdom's envoy stood up and said to the emperor with a smile, "The Great Jing is full of talented individuals, and both its civil governance and military prowess are admirable. However, our Yu Kingdom has always revered horsemanship and archery. This time, we have brought a few skilled warriors. Would it be possible for them to spar with the princes of the Great Jing? It would allow us to witness the martial spirit of your nation." The crown prince rose from his seat and said, "Since the envoy has come from afar, a friendly spar would be a fine occasion. I am willing to give it a try and uphold the reputation of the Great Jing's princes." Before the emperor could even open his mouth to respond, Theo Mu also abruptly stood up and declared loudly, "Father, my leg injury has healed. I am willing to personally take the field and compete with the warriors of the Moon Kingdom. I will not let the Great Jing lose face, nor will I trouble my elder brother to worry." As he said this, it seemed as though victory was already in his grasp. By his side, Consort Li immediately chimed in with a smile. "Your Majesty, what Kaya says is absolutely right. His leg injury is no longer an issue, and his horsemanship is among the best among the princes. He is sure to win this contest and bring glory to the Great Jing." The mother and son played off each other, leaving the eldest prince, Murong Chen, who had volunteered, completely sidelined. Without even a shred of consideration, I sat in the women's seating area, and my gaze accidentally met that of the third prince, Levi Mu. Before quickly looking away, Levi Mu nodded to me in acknowledgement. The emperor said, "Excellent. I grant you permission to take the field. Remember, you must display the might of our Great Jing, but also know when to stop. Do not harm the goodwill between our two nations." Theo Mu was overjoyed and immediately bowed to accept the decree, then glanced at me triumphantly. At first, Theo Mu was able to keep pace with the warrior from the Moon Kingdom, and even gradually gained the upper hand thanks to his familiarity with the course and the horse. But just as Theo Mu was about to cross the finish line, with the entire hall thinking he was going to win, Theo Mu, who had been in the lead, suddenly lurched to the side and fell straight off his horse, crashing heavily onto the grass. "Fourth prince, oh my God!" Exclamations rose one after another from the stands, and the palace attendants rushed toward the horse track. Consort Li could no longer remain seated, the smile on her face instantly freezing. She stumbled down from the stands. "Kaya, your leg, how is your leg? Quick! Summon the imperial physician. Summon the imperial physician at once." The warrior from the Moon Kingdom opposite also panicked, quickly jumping down from his horse and standing helplessly to the side, continuously explaining, "I didn't touch him, I really didn't touch him." The emperor instructed, "It's fine, it was just an accident during the contest, no need to panic." Although he said this, his expression was extremely grim as he ordered the eunuch beside him, "First, carry the fourth prince down for medical treatment. Do not disturb the envoy's enjoyment." Watching Theo Mu rolling on the ground in embarrassment in front of everyone, I chuckled to myself, "Theo Mu, let you taste the feeling of falling from the clouds to the ground." Fortunately, this accident did not affect the subsequent competition. The eldest prince, Murong Chen, remounted his horse and calmly sparred with the warrior from Yu Kingdom, ultimately winning the match steadily. The leader of the Yu Kingdom envoys exclaimed with admiration, "His Highness the Crown Prince's horsemanship is superb, and his composure is remarkable. Truly the demeanor of the heir apparent of Beijing. We are deeply impressed." That night, the Imperial Hospital was brightly lit throughout. As the Imperial physicians were still busy treating Theo Mu's leg injury, working without rest the entire night, early the next morning, news indeed came from the palace. The fourth prince, Theo Mu, was severely injured in the leg and needed to rest in bed, unable to make any public appearances for the time being. Afterward, it was said that Consort Li completely lost control in the palace, smashing everything in the hall. Inside the palace, Consort Li, with disheveled hair and a frenzied appearance, screamed hysterically, "My son's leg, how could it be gone? How could there be nothing left but a layer of skin? Your Majesty, this must be witchcraft, someone is trying to harm Kaya. It's the eldest prince, it must be him." She was completely devoid of her usual grace and dignity. The emperor's face turned livid as he forcefully shook off her hand, his tone filled with irritation. "Enough, what's the use of saying all this now? Send someone immediately to capture that Zwanjizi. I want him found, alive or dead." By the bed in the center of the hall, several imperial physicians remained kneeling on the ground. The elderly physician at the head trembled, his voice tinged with fear. "Your Majesty, the GU worm in the fourth prince's leg has already spread to his knee. If we do not amputate his left leg soon, the GU worm may travel upward through his veins and endanger his life. Though he will need to walk with a crutch after the amputation, at least his life will be spared. I implore your Majesty to decide." "No, it can't be." Consort Li threw herself at the bedside. "Your Majesty, if my son loses a leg, how will others see him in the future? He is your most beloved prince." Theo Mu lay on the bed, his face as pale as paper, his eyes tightly shut. The emperor stood before the bed and finally gritted his teeth, saying, "Amputate it. If we can't save the leg, we must at least save his life." She collapsed to the ground, tears silently streaming down her face, murmuring, "It's over. Everything is over." This strike cost him any chance at the throne. The news of the fourth prince, Theo Mu, breaking his leg ultimately could not be kept hidden. Even the servants in my household knew that the once glorious and promising fourth prince, who had hopes of seizing the throne, had now become a cripple with broken legs. The political winds in the court gradually began to favor the eldest prince, Murong Chen. Consort Li was so anxious that her mouth was covered in blisters. She sent people to guard Theo Mu to prevent him from doing anything foolish, while she knelt at the palace gates every day, tearfully pleading with the emperor to thoroughly investigate the curse insect disaster. The emperor, already troubled by the commotion at the envoy's banquet, was pestered by Consort Li until he had no choice but to issue an order for a search. That day, I heard that officials from the Dali temple had found a small wooden doll pierced with needles in the eldest prince's study, with the birth date of the fourth prince written on it. Upon hearing the news, Consort Li rushed to the emperor with disheveled hair, weeping as if her heart were breaking. "Your Majesty, it was the crown prince. He used witchcraft to harm Kaya. First, he caused Kaya to break his leg, and now he seeks to take Kaya's life with sorcery. You must seek justice for Kaya." The emperor, who had always been deeply wary of witchcraft, was further enraged by these words. He immediately ordered the crown prince to be placed under house arrest and commanded the Dali temple to conduct a thorough investigation into the matter. Just as everyone believed the crown prince would not escape this calamity, the situation took a shocking turn the very next day, after being placed under house arrest. The crown prince consistently maintained his innocence. To prove he wrote a letter in his own blood overnight and had it delivered to the emperor, requesting a reinvestigation into the matter of the wooden figure in the study. The third prince, Levi Mu, also pleaded for the eldest prince in the imperial court. He took the opportunity to report to the emperor the incident of the deranged horse at the horse race years ago, as well as the case of the eunuch who drowned. Hinting that both incidents might be related to Consort Li, the Dali temple quickly interrogated the guard who had previously been responsible for searching the eldest prince's study. The guard, unable to endure the torture, finally confessed. It was the chief eunuch of Consort Li's palace who had instructed him. Originally, Consort Li had confidently sworn before the emperor, "This is a false accusation, Your Majesty." At this moment, Princess Anli, Murong Yao, requested an audience with the emperor. She produced another small wooden figure, on which was inscribed the emperor's birth date and time. Murong Yao tearfully said, "I found this by chance in my mother's dressing case." She also claimed that Consort Li prayed daily to the wooden figure, cursing the emperor and hoping for his early death so that Theo Mu could ascend the throne sooner. It seems Murong Yao was driven to desperation, ultimately choosing to place righteousness above family loyalty. That very night, Consort Li was banished to the cold palace. Theo Mu, who had originally been shown mercy by the emperor and allowed to recuperate quietly at his residence, became completely deranged upon waking. Whether due to the severe shock of his broken leg or the lingering toxins from the GU worms affecting his mind, upon waking, he immediately shouted, "I am the emperor, all of you must kneel and pay homage to me. My empress is Lady Qin, and Iris is my consort Li. How dare you show me disrespect? How could I have become like this? I will not be lame. It is Qin who should be lame. She is the one who deserves to be crippled." This mad talk quickly reached the emperor's ears, and he was both shocked and enraged. He immediately sent people to search the fourth prince's residence. During the search, a dragon robe was found in Theo Mu's secret compartment. Treason. This is outright treason. The emperor was so enraged that he smashed the porcelain vase on the imperial desk and immediately issued an edict: strip Theo Mu of his title as the fourth prince, demote him to a commoner, and imprison him for life in the imperial clan court. Overnight, what was originally known as the witchcraft scandal completely transformed into the fourth prince's rebellion. Everyone in the capital was on edge, and the imperial court was filled with an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. Amid this widespread panic, my father, General Qin Lai, the guardian of the nation, suddenly knelt directly before the emperor during the morning court session. "Your Majesty, I am willing to return this painting and humbly request Your Majesty's permission for me to resign from my post and return to my hometown. To prove the Qin family's innocence and that we had no part in conspiring with the fourth prince," he held a scroll high in his hands. That painting was none other than the Shanhe II map of mountains and rivers. The emperor looked at the painting, then at his father kneeling on the ground, and remained silent for a long time. Now, the only military general the court could rely on was his father, who held military power and had always been loyal. The emperor, General Qin, I know you are loyal and devoted, and I have never doubted you. Then, his gaze swept over the civil and military officials in the court. The Qin family has been loyal for generations. Whoever dares to speak ill of them, I will not spare them. Upon learning of my father's actions in the court, as soon as he returned to the residence, I threw myself into his arms. The tragic fate of the Qin family in the previous life and the constant fear and cautiousness in this life finally found their resolution at this moment. Father stiffened, somewhat uneasy. "Silly child, why are you crying? The emperor has few heirs to begin with. Although Theo Mu has been imprisoned in the imperial clan court, there's no guarantee His Majesty won't soften his heart in the future. My move is both a show of loyalty and a way to cut off any chance of Theo Mu making a comeback. We must not let him have another opportunity to implicate the Qin family." "Father, but I'm afraid, one more thing. It's said that when Theo Mu fell from his horse that day, the horse's hoof not only injured his leg but also struck his lower body. Now, he is no longer capable of fathering children." My heart trembled. Perhaps this was heaven's punishment for Theo Mu. "Father, I want to go to the imperial clan court to see him." "Very well. Let this put your mind at ease once and for all." The sky above the imperial clan court was oppressively gloomy, and the air was thick with a damp, musty smell. Theo Mu was dressed in coarse prison garb, his hair disheveled and hanging over his shoulders. The empty left leg of his trousers swayed gently in the wind, a stark contrast to the proud and spirited prince he once was. He sat in the wheelchair, muttering incessantly, "I am the emperor. Those ministers are all traitors. I want to go back. I want to reclaim the throne." I stood where I was, not stepping forward, just watching him coldly. An indescribable sense of satisfaction spread from the depths of my heart. I slowly spoke. "Theo Mu, you are not the emperor, and you will never become one. Now, you are just a disgraced man stripped of your title and confined to the imperial clan court." He suddenly looked up, his murky eyes fixed on me as if he wanted to devour me whole. "It's you, it must be you. What did you do? My leg, my throne. You ruined them all." I curled the corner of my lips. "Guess." At these words, Theo Mu's body trembled violently, and then he fell from his wheelchair. "No, I am the emperor. I am the emperor." He lay on the ground, like a stray dog, crying and howling. Looking utterly wretched, Iris Sue stood by, silent from beginning to end. It is said that on the day Theo Mu was deposed, she was traumatized and became dazed and confused. I had originally intended to leave directly, but suddenly recalling the past, I said to her, "Iris Sue, The child in your womb is now Theo Mu's only descendant. Once the new emperor ascends the throne, he will surely grant a general amnesty. By then, you and your child might still have a glimmer of hope, just. If Theo Mu continues to speak recklessly, one day the imperial clan court might find you and your mother an eyesore, and arrange for you to reunite with consort Li neatly underground. Iris Su's body stiffened slightly. That very night, news came from the imperial clan court. Theo Mu had suddenly suffered a stroke, lost the ability to speak, and was left bedridden, requiring assistance even for basic needs like eating and drinking, perhaps due to the lingering resentment over consort Li's matter. Or maybe from years of exhausting political duties, the emperor's illness struck earlier and more severely than in the previous life. During a court assembly, he unexpectedly coughed up blood in front of everyone and subsequently took to his bed, unable to rise. The imperial physicians of the Thai hospital stood watch day and night, yet they could not halt the worsening of his condition. A month later, the emperor issued his final decree, passing the throne to the eldest prince, Murong Chen. Before the new emperor's ascension, he specifically summoned me to the palace. Murong Chen was dressed in a bright yellow casual robe, his brow already bearing the initial dignity of an emperor, yet still carrying a touch of gentleness. Miss Qin, I am grateful for your covert assistance in the case of consort Li, and I also remember the merits of General Qin guarding the border. Whatever reward you desire, just tell me, and I will not treat you unfairly. I looked at Levi Mu standing beside the new emperor, who gave me an encouraging glance. After spending these days together, I had long guessed that the person who comforted me behind the rockery back then was actually Levi Mu. I took a deep breath, raised my head, and looked at the new emperor with a determined gaze. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. Since childhood, I have grown up with my father in the northern desert, familiar with the customs of the borderlands. I wished to become a female general, guarding the frontier and protecting the vast lands of the Jing dynasty. The new emperor was taken aback for a moment, then burst into hearty laughter. Excellent, truly worthy of the daughter of the guardian general. Such courage, I grant your request. After my formal ascension to the throne, I will issue an edict appointing you as the Bright Veiler General, allowing you to join General Qin in guarding the northern desert. I knelt and kowtowed, unable to conceal my excitement. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not fail your trust, nor the people of Jing dynasty. As I walked out of the palace gate, Levi Mu stayed by my side. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a smile. Then I shall congratulate General Qin in advance. I raised the corner of my mouth and casually said, You flatter me, Levi Mu. When I go to the border, would you like to come as well? The climate in the northern desert isn't actually that bad. Levi Mu looked at me with a gentle and earnest gaze, nodding softly. All right.